Hello, impressive souls, and welcome to a new episode of Your Impressivity Show. I'm Alex Baditza, I'm your host, and today we're talking about journaling for creating healthy habits. I am joined by my special guest, Rob Swagten, habit coach and founder of his company, Worthy Tweaks. Rob is a passionate entrepreneur and a personal development geek, and he is driven by making a positive impact. He takes pride in having the opportunity to help people build better habits. It's his mission to make habit change easier so that people can live a happier and more fulfilling life. In addition to his personal coaching, Rob has developed multiple habit journals that provide guidance and structure to build better habits. So let's meet Rob. Hey Rob, how are you?
Hi there, I'm doing very good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, and thank you for saying yes to my invitation. And I am really excited to hear more about what you do in terms of journaling, because I was reading earlier in your bio that you are a habit coach and you help people build better habits. I love this.
Yes, that's me. They also call me the habit guy.
The habit guy. Okay, that's really awesome. First, let's kind of clear a little bit for people who are listening. Let's make it very clear for everyone. What are better habits? Because, sometimes we have this idea of, I want to bring changes into my life, but how can people distinguish between healthy habits and unhealthy habits? What are better habits? How can they understand what better habits mean for them?
Of course, when you want to make a change, you have to be aware, like, what do I have to change? And it always starts with that awareness that you're looking for. And this also really depends on the person. Like, one thing I always share with people is, everyone is different, and what might be like kind of a very positive habit for me might not be the best habit for someone else. So that's always something you want to strive toward, like to find that answer for yourself. And actually, that's one thing where I can already go to the journaling, because I actually recommend journaling a lot to kind of ask yourself the questions and to become aware, like, hey, what are the things I do on a daily basis that actually get me toward my goals, and what are the things that actually holding me back to go towards my goals. And I think that's something people have to ask themselves, and they have to kind of analyze their habits, their consistent activities, and then kind of compare if those activities, if they are aligned with their goals, and if it makes sense, and if it actually brings them towards their goals. And then just by journaling about this and by asking yourself those questions, probably you will get more clarity on that, and you can logically decide what's good for you and what's not.
Yeah, I really love that, because I think it's also an exercise of awareness and kind of paying attention and monitoring what is good for you and what's not good for you, and really being present in everything that you're doing, right? Because otherwise you can just go with the flow and don't even know what is helping you and what is keeping you from achieving your goal. So it's a beautiful awareness exercise.
100%. Yeah.
So now that you shared with us that you are called the habit guy, tell us more a little bit. How are habits formed?
How are habits formed? Well, that's of course something. A lot of people are kind of looking for that answer, and there's like for me. There's of course different ways to form a habit, but in general it's very simple, and it comes down to repetition, and it's also really about the frequency of how you do certain things. And I don't know, a lot of people they kind of know a very famous habit book, which is called The Power of Habits, from Charles Duhigg, and there he explains that the habits kind of has three phases: a cue, a routine, and a reward. That basically comes down to, first, kind of, we have cues in our life. We have certain reminders that kind of make us, remind us to behave in a certain way. This is because, in general, when we live our life, we are always searching for rewards. We are always searching for a good feeling, a good and a positive feeling. And when in your life you live your life, and you kind of start to learn that once you have kind of a certain reminder to do something, maybe something external or maybe a feeling internally, and you then perform this certain routine, where then after doing that you feel good, then because you feel good, kind of your body will kind of feel like, hey, this was a positive experience. I want to do this again. Based on kind of that memory, once that cue sets in, and once that reminder comes like in your like awareness again, you want to repeat it because you want this good feeling again. So this can start like very subtle, but then over time, once you do this more and more, this is becoming kind of more and more ingrained in your inner reward system in your subconscious mind.
So how long is this happening? Because we hear a lot of versions, like, is it 21 days? Is it 90 days? How long does it take for a habit to actually form?
Yeah, that's indeed like one big question, and everyone always wants to find that answer. And you hear a lot of different answers, and I'm actually not that focused on it as well. Some science indeed says like 22 days. A lot of people, they work with 30. Some people say 66. So for me, what I always say, it also really, depends on the type of habit and if it really suits you as a person. First of all, you have kind of different types of habits that you can already say like they suit you a lot, and they're not very difficult for you to implement, right? And kind of those kind of habits, they can actually form a lot quicker than more those habits that are really something more outside of who you are already, and more out of your comfort zone. And just the more difficult habits, if you really plan on implementing those, it can take a longer time. So I always say it really depends on the habits and on you.
So it's more about quality rather than quantity.
Yeah, definitely.
The quality of the habit.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And I think, as you said, because we're all unique, we're all very different, and it's definitely going to depend on so many other aspects in our life. And I think also lifestyle and where we're at in our personal journey. And all of these things are just very different, and we can't really give a certain recipe and say, well, do this every day, and then in 21 days, for sure, you're going to be a master.
100%.
Right.
Yeah, like in the whole journey, like of this personal growth and with your habits, like one of the biggest parts is experimentation, because you can read all these different things and you can hear all these habits that are supposed to be good, and that, these successful people are doing, but you don't know if it works for you until you actually do it. And until you've seen like if it actually fits you and your lifestyle. And that's just a very big part, is to just do it, and to go out there. And that's also one of the biggest things like we stand for with my company, Worthy Tweaks. Yeah,
I love it. Experimentation. That's a key word. I love it.
100%.
Yes. So maybe you kind of already started the answer to my next question, because I was thinking, like, if someone is listening right now and they're thinking, okay, I want to start a new habit. I want to build a habit of, I don't know, let's say I want to build a habit of meditating every day. How do they start?
How do they start? Well, first of all, actually, like the step before that, also, like when I start with my coaching clients and we discuss, like, all right, what habits, like, are we going to implement? Of course, like the first question is what do I want to reach? What is my goal? And that's, of course, like the first, like, step you want to have clarity on, because you can have, like, a goal which can be like being less stressed, let's say, and maybe that's kind of your main goal. You want to have more peace of mind during the day, and then, you know, based on that goal, you can actually think, hey, meditation could be, you know, a good habit to implement. But there's also different other habits that can help with that. You know, you can think of other habits, maybe just walking around the block, or just listening to some very, you know, relaxing and peaceful music. And that's always what I say, like the first step, like, hey, just first look at your goal and look at, like, the different things you can do to reach those goals, to like the different habits you can implement to actually work towards that goal.
Right.
And then what you want to do is you kind of want to, based on the possibilities of habits you could implement, you want to, you know, pick the most interesting one. And to kind of pick that most interesting habit, I always use, like, two like scientifically proven questions from B.J. Fogg, which is a very interesting behavior scientist who wrote a book, Tiny Habits, which you've probably heard about, which is a very cool book. And he shares two questions to kind of pick your habits. And it kind of comes down to, like, the first question is, like, on scale of 1 to 10, how effective would this habit be to reach my goals? So that's kind of the first question. And then the second question is, like, do I see myself doing this? So, like, on scale of 1 to 10, how much does this habit actually suit me as a person? And then, kind of based on answering those two questions, very often you can very logically see, like, hey, yes, like, meditation makes most sense for me. So that seems like, you know, the most interesting habit for me to implement to reach this goal. And then once you've kind of picked that habit, you, of course, a very big thing, and you hear it all the time, you build it up. So you don't, like, start too big. It's really about first kind of starting the habit of getting started. So you kind of want to first focus on that, actually, yeah, that activity of getting started, where it's not even, like, important what you do after that, as long as you've gotten started. Because, you know, if you start to do that over time, once you get into the habit of doing it every day, probably over time you will naturally want to develop the habit, and you will naturally want to, you know, expand it and say, like, let's say, for instance, you want to start reading more. You know, you can really say, like, all right, I want to implement this habit. I'm going to start very small, and I'm going to say that I want to read 2 pages every day, just to get started. And then you start with that, but then probably once you've done that for a week or 2, probably you're like, well, I'm already having the book in my hand. I already got started. now I actually want to read more, you know, I want to make some more progress in the book, etc. And then like that, you will probably already have the natural tendency to kind of, yeah, increase the intensity of the habit and to develop it over time. So that's something that's always, you know, good to keep in mind.
Right.
But then also in advance, you can also kind of make a build-up planning where you kind of want to build up the habit over time. Yeah.
Okay, so first you need to set the goal. So before you even start the habit, you need to have a very clear goal, and then see what habits are supporting that goal, right? And then answer these two questions, which I really love. So how effective is this habit going to be for my goal? And do I see myself doing this habit? Does it feel like myself? And then you just get started, and then you start building it up and increasing what you're doing.
Yeah, so that's one thing, and of course, like there's different like things you can do to kind of increase your chances of success, and that's actually how we created our journals, because we have people, you know, go through this certain like preparation before they start implementing, you know, their habits. So there's different things you can also think about and journal about before starting the habits.
Okay, so is it something like maybe removing some blocks or something that is keeping you from actually starting that? Or could you give us some examples of journaling questions?
Yeah. So like the first one, and that one you also hear quite often, is the why, like the actual motivation. Like you, of course, you then have a goal, but then really kind of trying to dig for yourself, like, but what's the real motivation? Like, why do I really want to implement that in my life? Yeah, you know, that's always the nice thing with journaling. You can really start to dig deep, you know, and go to levels where usually if you don't journal about it, you don't really get to that like level. But really, you know, asking yourself that question and journaling about that, and also like asking yourself like, hey, if this would be implemented, and if, you know, it would really create the results I'm hoping for, like how would my life look like? How would that feel? And really trying to create and see that in front of your eyes, and like feeling that emotion behind it, like, wow, how would that feel? So that's is a very big step. And then of course, you know, journaling about that is great because you can always read it back, you know. So when you've started to implement it, and maybe there's a period, you know, where you're feeling it's a bit more challenging and it's getting tough, then you can also, you know, look back at that and kind of use that as your fuel again, and as your like motivation in which you like, where you wrote down like, yes, this is why I started, and I still want this so much, so I keep going, you know. So, you know, writing about that why, that's one of yeah, the main things to do before you start as well. But then also other like things to write about are indeed kind of the possible obstacles. So looking at implementing this habit, what are probably going to be the obstacles? What are things that could make this challenging? And, you know, often in advance, when you already think about it, and when you take some time to think about it, you can already see like, all right, this is going to be a challenge. You know, I actually want to, you know, start like meditating around 7 o'clock, but actually, you know, around that time, my husband or partner is like doing something which makes a lot of noise in the house, you know. So actually that's not a good fit, you know. That's an obstacle. So based on kind of seeing that ahead, you can kind of make your plan accordingly and say, all right, I'm going to approach it like this. Or you can say like, hey, you can kind of make an action plan in which you kind of say like, if this obstacle arises, then I will do this. And kind of that if then principle, that's also like scientifically proven to work very well. So you just write down like, if this obstacle comes up, then I will do this. And kind of thinking in advance about these things makes it eventually a lot easier, like when it comes up.
Hey dear entrepreneur, did you know that building healthy habits is key for running your business? You are welcome to join the Journaling Studio, your destination for a successful business and life using transformational writing. The Journaling Studio is a membership platform with monthly writing prompts, live coaching sessions, and a community of growth-driven entrepreneurs just like you looking to find clarity, inspiration, and motivation. Join for a month and then cancel anytime. I love that because it kind of makes you not be able to say no. It kind of gives you all of the answers, so you're prepared so that you have no excuse on the way to just give up on that habit building. So we already went now into journaling, and you mentioned, right, that we have journaling before even starting the habit. So we have journaling for our motivation, knowing the why, and really helping us build that hype even before we start the actual habit building. And then it's also about planning beforehand and eliminating all of these obstacles and scenarios that what could go wrong. How is journaling then helping us move through building the actual habit? Is it with accountability? Is it with, like, how is the process of journaling helping us build the habit?
Exactly. So what I've learned so far is that, in personal growth in general, but then of course, building habits as well, just the reflective process during that time is so crucial, because like we said, you're experimenting and you're doing things that are new. So you're having new experiences, and you really want to have kind of that time where you analyze your experiences. You really want to have this constant reflection in which you look back on your day or on your week and ask yourself, hey, what went well? What didn't went well? And what could I do better next time? And that consistent process of asking yourself those questions, that really leads you to a lot more clarity in what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And also, when you're implementing this one habit, there's often different approaches of implementing the habits. You can do it in different ways. And during your once you start experimenting and building the habits, you're learning that.
Can you give us some examples maybe from your experience? Or
yeah, so for instance, you want to implement the habits, and well, let's stick with meditation then, where you want to implement meditation, and you decide to meditate every evening, and you want to meditate every evening, and you start doing that maybe around 9 o'clock in the evening, and you can start with that, and then over time you can kind of learn and experience hey, actually around that time, mostly I'm very tired. I'm actually very kind of tired of the day, my battery is very low, so actually I don't have a lot of focus to actually meditate and calm my mind like that, and becoming aware of that, you can actually say, hey, maybe the evening is not the best time to implement this habit. Maybe I should try to implement it in the morning, where you can then say, like, based on your journaling and your reflection, you can say, all right, so maybe the evening is not the best approach. Let's now try to do it in the morning. And then you can, you know, start experimenting with that and start reflecting on that again.
So basically it's reflecting and then also taking action on the results of your reflection.
Yeah, constantly like making iterations and finding those approaches that work for you. Like that's like the constant process. And that's also very important that you're flexible enough to do that. You know, so many people, they often have this perfect image on how they want to do it. You know, but yeah, often it's very important to stay flexible and to give yourself that space to try different things and to really find that spot or that approach that makes it, you know, work for you.
Right. Progress, not perfection. This is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So when you're evaluating the way that you are implementing your new habit, and when you're reflecting, when is it the best way to do it? Do you do it on a daily basis? Do you do it every morning? Do you do it every evening, or maybe every week to see where you're at with your habit? When is the best way to actually use your journal to evaluate your habit building?
That's a good question, and here I actually have the same answer as what we discussed before. It really depends on the person. Like, there's no one perfect answer for everyone. Personally, what I've experienced, and also with my coaching clients, you know, it makes sense to do it in the evening and on a daily basis. So that's also, you know, what I do, you know, on a daily basis. In my evening routine, I have my journaling, and I really have this reflection on, you know, how did the day go, and what can I learn from that. And that's, you know, for me, you know, a great time. But, you know, for some lifestyles, like some lifestyles maybe are more, you know, busy in the evening, where it just makes sense to take, you know, some time for it in the mornings and to just look back at your previous day. So I don't think like there's a perfect time for it. I do think it's very good to do it on a daily basis, because, you know, the longer you wait, the bigger the chance you will kind of forget those subtle things that actually could be key insights, you know, of you know, things that could help you. So I really recommend that to do that on a daily basis. But then also, what could be nice is to have this general daily evaluation, but then also have kind of a more broader weekly evaluation, in which you kind of take the whole week then, and then kind of, yeah, zoom out a little bit more. So that could be nice as well.
So would you use different journaling prompts for the weekly evaluation than for the daily evaluation, or how is it structured, for instance, in your journals?
Yeah, we have like different journaling prompts indeed. So like on a daily basis, it stays more kind of broad, like, hey, what was your experience today? Where like in our journal, people can kind of decide, like determine, like, hey, it was actually quite a challenging day, or it was like a piece of cake, it went very easy. So they can kind of determine the difficulty of that day, and then based on that, they get a question like, what can you say about that? And then they will kind of, you know, answer a little bit like, hey, what can I say about that? And then they have that answer and reflection. And that's kind of the daily prompt what we have. And then like you also kind of have a short preparation for the next day, in which you set an intention for the next day. But then like we're considering the reflection, like when it comes to the weekly evaluation, you really look at the whole week, and for instance, you write down like, hey, what were all like the positive experiences I had in the past week, and you can write that down, and then, you know, based on that, what can I learn? Like looking at all these positive experiences, like from the past week, what can I learn from that? And is that lesson something I could take with me, in which I can make sure those positive things happen more often, right? So then those are the positive things, and then you can do that the same for the more less positive experiences, in which you say like, hey, what were kind of, you know, the challenges last week, and you can write those down, and what can you learn from that, and is it possible to then prevent those things like in the next week, like what can you do or what can you change to make sure that these more negative experiences don't happen again. So that's kind of then the more zoomed out weekly evaluation.
Yeah, I really love that, because it's all about really evaluating and reflecting. And I always like to say that growth happens in the moments of reflection, and actually taking the time to sit down with your journal and to reflect on the things that go well, the things that don't go so well for you. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're going wrong. It's just maybe not suiting you. Just like you were saying, even when you choose the habits that you want to implement in your life, you want to make sure that it suits you. So coming with this set of reflection is really, really powerful. So I love that you are bringing that in your journals as well. And I know that you actually have created journals for different types of habits. And I would like to know if the journaling prompts are also different based on the types of habits that you want to implement, or is it something that you can also have, like the general ones that you shared with us already, with reflecting on a daily basis and on a weekly basis?
Yeah, good question. We have indeed like different journals, but they're all kind of like based on the same kind of framework, like habit building framework, and of course also with this framework and with the journaling prompts, we really, you know, kept in mind that everybody's different, so we didn't want to make it like too specific. We really wanted to keep the space for people to kind of make it their own, and with this reason, like we just found this framework that works for pretty much all habits. So actually also in the different like habit journals we have, we kind of have our core like journaling prompts and questions that work for pretty much all these habits.
Yeah, I really like that, because I think it actually comes down to this part of reflecting, evaluating, and being intentional, and also just going back to revisit your why, your motivation, which is really, really powerful. Can you give us an example or share with us how the habit of journaling helped you in your journey?
100%. Yeah. Yeah, so it's been like a big part of my journey. It kind of got started also with like guided journals. I think kind of my first approach, my kind of first experience with journaling was with the 5-minute journal from Intelligent Change, which is quite a big one and popular one worldwide. And you know, that's a journal which is really you know, nice and focuses a lot on gratitude and your intentions, etc. And I started with that. I bought one of those journals, and you know, I really, you know, liked the experience with it, and from there I kind of started to look more into journaling, and then I've, of course, you know, experimented a lot with with journaling. So I've done a lot of different things where I work indeed with guided journals, but then I started also just like journaling with just blank journals in which I just, like determined the questions myself and just started to write about that. And it really helped me in a way where I became a lot more self-aware. I started to learn a more like what worked for me and what didn't work for me. And that's just something that really helped me to kind of determine, the right actions for me. For me, I actually journal both in the morning and in the evening right now. So in the evening, it's indeed more focused on reflection. In the morning, it's more focused on gratitude and intention. So I kind of have those both. That gratitude is also like a very big part of my journaling. I actually also do that in the evening. But for me personally, that's just very powerful and gives me a good feeling to very consistently just write down the things I'm grateful for, and really creating that feeling. That's does a lot for me, and especially also in the day, kind of getting that positivity in the day. For me, and I've heard for a lot of other people, it's very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there's science backing up gratitude and how powerful it is. And I love that you shared that your journey actually with journaling wasn't perfect. You had to experiment and give it a try and see what works for you and what doesn't work. So I think this is very important for everyone to understand that it's not just, you start the day and that's it. The way that you started, whether you chose a guided journal or free writing, that's it, you're stuck with it. No, you can just keep trying and experimenting and figuring out on the way what works and what doesn't work. And also, I think it depends on different stages where we're at, because, sometimes we might want to have questions to answer to, and sometimes we just might feel like, I just need to write everything that's on my mind and just put it down and get rid of it. Yeah,
100%. And that's also like when you like look at like the different goals again, like, hey, why are you journaling? And your goals of course change during your life, and based on that, your journaling can also change.
Absolutely.
So for instance, like when you're really focused on implementing new habits, it makes a lot of sense to journal a lot about that. But if there's something else in your life which has more focus, like for instance, really something more kind of internal work, trying to let go of some things that happened in the past, or like some fears that you feel inside, then you can base your journaling more on that. So it's also really based on what has your current focus at the moment, and where do you want to have that growth.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think this is important for everyone to know that journaling is the tool that is there for you no matter where you're at in your life, and you just have to figure out what kind of journaling suits you. And just like with habits, when you choose a new habit, figure out what habit suits you. And if journaling is something that you want to pick up also as a habit, then give it a try, experiment with it, and kind of find what works for you and what doesn't work. So I want to say thank you, Rob. And I actually have the last 3 questions that I offer to all of my guests, and they're kind of like rapid questions. But before we go there, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you're doing, and for the journals that you've put out there for everyone to actually have this support of getting the prompts in front of them and help them navigate through new habits that they want to create. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
You're very welcome. Yeah, I'm very, very happy, and I feel very privilege to be able to do this. Yeah, it's amazing to make, you know, this habit change, which is like a very, you know, big challenge for so many people. You know, to make that a little bit easier. I'm very, you know, proud to be able to do that. Yeah.
So, Rob, what are you grateful for?
What am I grateful for? Well, I think I just shared, like, really being able to, you know, make a difference in people's lives, because I've had, you know, these personal challenges with habit change as well, and I know how frustrated it can be, and how much it can hold you back to actually reach your goals and to live that life you want to live. And, you know, being able to help other people with that, and to kind of see those positive transformations, that's just something I'm very grateful for, to have the ability to do that. Yeah, that's amazing.
Wonderful. How do you impress yourself?
How do I impress myself? That's a very good question. Something I've never got asked before. I think, by constantly, you know, looking for those worthy tweaks. Like, that's the name of my company, worthy tweaks. And I personally believe, you know, that there's always, you know, worthy tweaks that can be made. Just little iterations that can, like, improve your life. And I feel like this personal growth journey, like, it's lifelong. It doesn't end. And I think, you know, and we can all keep impressing ourselves by just getting a little bit better every day, every week, every month.
I love that. That's so awesome. And what is your definition to live your impressivity?
Really following, you know, your heart. Like, for me, what I've really noticed is when I kind of follow my enthusiasm and my excitement, that's when kind of most positive things happen. And when I'm doing things that kind of have more, you know, tension around it, then, you know, things are just not going as smoothly. And I think, like, living that impressivity is really, you know, following that heart, and actually also, you know, sometimes making these courageous, like, choices where it can feel uncomfortable, and it can, you know, feel, like I said, really outside of your comfort zone, because it's something you've never done before. I think still going this and then experiencing that this is indeed, you know, something you should do. I think that's eventually something that will create a very impressive life. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Live Your Impressivity Show. And if you liked it, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Also, if you have questions on journaling and other topics that you would like to find out more about, then let us know, because this is for you to find more clarity and inspiration to build a successful life and business. If you'd like to connect with Rob, go ahead and check the links in the description to his social media and his website. And until next time, stay impressive.